When I started putting together my notes for this video, things I hate about autism, I considered that maybe I should call it things that I used to hate or find challenging about autism, but that makes for a cumbersome title. So let's go ahead and let's call it things I hate about being autistic. The first thing I put on the list was it's very difficult to make friends. If I were to take out a sheet of paper and I were to list all the people that I know, these are not relatives, but people that I know that I consider good friends, I'd have a blank sheet of paper. I mean, I just can't think of any. Now, that's not to say that I never have had friends. When I was a kid, I had a good friend who lived in the neighborhood and would hang out together all the time. And when I was a teenager, 14, 13, 12 years old, that range, I had a good friend that, same thing, would hang out, spend hours together. We spent a lot of time just walking around, talking. But friends, no, they're difficult to have. And why is that? I think it's because, well, a couple of reasons. People find us a social deficit. Number two, they find it very cumbersome for us to have a conversation with us. It's very difficult, challenging for them to connect with us. And the other direction, it's very difficult for us, or for me anyhow, as a person with autism, to connect to other people. I mean, what do you talk about? Nothing. You can't think of anything. And they wind up doing all the talking, and there's just really no bonding there. So that raises a question, what actually is a friend? So I thought, okay, what are friends? I'm going to look it up. So I Googled it. And the definition that I found on the internet for friends is an American television show. So I thought, okay, let me drop the S and try it again. And I found the definition of a friend is a person whom one knows, with whom one has a bond of mutual affection, typically exclusive of sexual or fantasy relations. That makes perfect sense. Good definition of friends or friend. What I don't understand is why it says a person whom one knows. Why don't they just say who? Now, with whom one knows, then you get a preposition, then it makes sense. So if you can understand that, explain it to me. It's got nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I'm just kind of curious why that is. So one of the things that I don't like or didn't like about being autistic is you don't have any friends. I mean, zero, none. I'm not sure now that that's a bad thing. I really don't mind. In fact, I kind of enjoy being by myself. There's sometimes, usually when I go out to eat, go out with my wife. But typically when I go out to eat by myself, I like it. I like having that alone time when I can just sit there and let my mind wander and think about things. I love to take walks by myself. I like to do things by myself. If somebody were to come along with me, it would be okay. If I had a friend to do those things with me, that would be okay. But I would somehow feel obligated to communicate with this person on a meaningful level. I would feel that, and I do sometimes. There are people that I know, I don't consider them good friends, but friends that I may have dinner with. These are people that I see maybe once a year, whatever, if that much. And get together, and it's difficult to talk to them because I can't think of anything to talk about. I feel uncomfortable. I feel self-conscious. But when you are alone, all that's gone. So I kind of like being alone. But for the sake of the title, things that I hate about being autistic, difficult to have friends. Me, again, I just got that blank sheet of paper. Number two is you can't hold down a job. I think the longest I ever held down a conventional job, the 9 to 5, clock in, clock out type of a job, I think the longest I ever held a job was 6 months. We've talked about this in other videos. I had one job. I held it for, 2 weeks. And it's not that I couldn't do the work. It's not that I had a bad attitude. I always showed up on time, but you just couldn't communicate socially with other people. And I have never, ever applied for a job. And back when I was younger, like in my 20s, I would apply for a lot of jobs. But I never remember applying for a job where they ask about social skills, But a lot of times when you're doing a resume, you always say, yeah, I like people. I love people. And because you think that's impressive. But I've never seen that as a job requirement that you get along with everybody, that that you're not quiet. Just never seen it. But the reality is that does seem to be a de facto requirement to hold down a job. You have to be able to socialize, to get along with people. As strange as that may seem, because that is what people are like. It's part of our human nature. So one of the things that I found very challenging, difficult about being autistic is you just can't hold down a job. Fortunately, is I was able to start a business and work for myself, so that wasn't a primary factor throughout most of my adult life. But for most people with autism, it's a serious problem. I think maybe 30% of people with high functioning autism are able to hold down a job. And again, it's not because they have a mental deficiency. The fact of the matter is most Aspies have average or above intelligence. In fact, that's one of the definitions, part of the criteria of having high-functioning autism. So they're not dumb. It's not that they can't do the work. Again, it's not that they are bad workers as far as showing up on time or breaking the rules. It's just that people don't like them. There's something odd about them, that they just don't communicate with, that uncanny valley. Number 3, thing that I hate about being autistic, and this is actually kind of comorbid with autism, is dyspraxia. That is to say, being uncoordinated or clumsy. I don't know that I'm particularly clumsy, but when it comes to things like sports, I'm just not very good at that. But do you really need to be? I mean, during the formative years, part of socializing, part of being accepted, is being at least proficient in sports. I mean, you can catch a ball, and you can throw a ball reasonably well, and you can dribble a ball, and you can play sports like basketball. You don't have to be a superstar, but you can play. But when you can't play, that isolates you socially because you're seen as kind of, man, what's wrong with this guy? He can't dribble a basketball. Actually, I can dribble a basketball. I just can't do it and run at the same time. I read one time reading the history of basketball that the first time they ever played basketball, they didn't dribble the ball. They carried it like a football. They were playing inside for some reason. I think it was because of some kind of a health issue that was going on, that everyone was trying to stay inside, shelter in place type of thing. And so some guy invented the game, and they about killed each other, trying to take the ball from the guy. So they changed the rules, made him dribble. Not that that has anything to do with anything, but as you get older, get into adult life, you find that those things that were so important to you as a kid, as a teenager, like being able to play sports, not nearly as important. Now maybe, your workplace, your church, whatever, has a ball team. That'd be nice if you could play on that, and you don't want to play on that. If you can't play on that, they may let you, but you're going to spend the whole time sitting on the bench, which is, where I'd prefer to be anyhow. But that's one of the things I would say that I hate about being an Aspie, about having autism, is I just don't have that coordination. I just don't have the ability to play sports. But again, I'm not sure that's a serious problem. And a lot of people who are autistic are actually very good at sports. Some of them actually excel in sports. That is their thing. That is one of the things they embrace because it's their way of dealing with the stress and anxiety of having Asperger syndrome. Number 4 is, this is also comorbid with autism, is not being physically strong. And again, that is important primarily when you're junior high school, you're expected to be strong. And there's this competition, virtually every mammal that I could think of, when they are pups or whatever you call, little animals, young animals, they will wrestle with each other. They will compete with each other. And they do that not just to gain strength, but they do it to define their place, their pecking order. mammals don't peck. That's birds, but you know what I mean. They're social. They're placed in the social strata. That's one of the reasons they do that. And the same thing is true of humans. That if you're not physically strong, sometimes we literally, kids will literally wrestle. More more often it's physical sports, but they will wrestle, and that's the way they they attain some level of what would you call it, respectability, or their place in society. With people with Asperger syndrome, they got to do something else if they have a challenge with being physically strong. What they may do is they may turn to academics, or they may turn to something like playing chess or whatever to prove their place in the social strata. But what happens if you can't do either one? You kind of get left out. So not being physically strong is, and by the way, I love to work out. I can't right now because of immune deficiency, but I love to exercise, love to walk, love to do weights, but I'm just not physically strong. I was talking to my grandson the other day, and I noticed his forearms were about 3 times the size of mine. I mean, this kid is huge. He works out, but you just can't do that. If I wanted to do it, I couldn't. I could work out all day long. Wouldn't work. Number 5 is this is something that I really hate or hated. I guess I still hate it about being autistic. Is you can't be understood. Now, when I say you can't be understood, what I'm saying is not that people can't understand what I'm saying, but a lot of times they can't because I lose my voice, or I stumble over my words, or I speak one-on-one incoherently because my brain is scrambled and my words are scrambled and they don't come out right. So sometimes in that sense I can't be understood, but people don't understand autism. Most people have no idea what it is. Throughout most of my life, I'd heard of it, but I had no idea what autism was, let alone that I was autistic. I didn't know what Asperger syndrome was. I didn't know what high-functioning autism was. Never heard of that. But I remember somebody posted on Facebook that their son had been diagnosed with Asperger syndrome. And I had no idea what that was, so I Googled it. I just curious, look it up, see what it is. And as I studied it, I realized that the more I dug into it, the more I realized, there's a match here. This is, they're talking about me. And so I didn't necessarily self-diagnose myself, but eventually I got to the place where I said, I really need to talk to a professional and see if this describes me, if this is what I'm really dealing with, so I'll know how to handle it. And sure enough, I checked almost every single box. Yeah, you got Asperger syndrome. And they don't like to call it Asperger syndrome. It's a politically correct thing, but I still do it because, well, it's the best way to communicate. But I say that you can't be understood in the sense that people don't know what it is. Not that they can't understand what you're saying. So and we've talked about this in other videos, but people just diagnose you because people have to understand, right? They need to have an explanation for everything. That's the way humans, I believe, are hardwired. And so they try to explain your behavior. And they will say something to the effect like they will diagnose you as lacking character. That's why you don't excel in whatever. They may say that you are lazy. They may say that you are aloof, that you are arrogant. They may say that you are shy as a pie. They have all these diagnostics that they apply to you that I've had applied to me. And I hate that because none of them are true, but they believe they're true, and they treat you accordingly. That is something that I really hate. People do not understand what you are dealing with, or at least what I'm dealing with. So that's one of the things, I still hate that about being autistic. Number 6, and this may be something that is unique to me, but again, this is something that I've talked about in other videos, but I really have this odd behavior where I tend to stare at people. I study people, but to study them, you have to stare at them. So it's really not staring. It's kind of looking at them and just kind of thinking and evaluating. And I don't even know why I do that. I don't mean to do it. I just do it kind of unconsciously. But when you do that, I say that I hate it about people with autism. I should say they hate it about me with autism. Other people hate it more than I hate it, but I hate it because they hate it because I'm making them uncomfortable, and I don't like to make other people uncomfortable, but, still I do it. But I hate that because I do it unconsciously, and I really don't like making people uncomfortable because they get, again, they misdiagnose it. They think that I'm thinking something that I'm not thinking. And if they're men, they think that you're being intimidating. And if they're women, remember we talked about this before, they think you have lust in your heart. That is so frustrating, some old fat dumpy woman thinking you're lusting after her, and geez, you almost want to puke when they think that. So that's something that I really hate about this condition that I have, but it's something that I've learned to live with, and one of the reasons that people with Asperger syndrome are avoidant is because of the negative feedback that we get when we're out about around other people. And I don't know what to do. Do you put on blinders? Do you wear sunglasses so people can't see your eyes? I've actually tried that once. I have prescription sunglasses that have the mirrors on them so people can't see your eye. You look like a traffic cop. But does that help? No, because they still think you're staring at them. They think you're wearing those glasses to hide your eyes so they won't know that you're staring at them, so that doesn't help. There are two rectangles on the screen. If you want to keep on talking, all you got to do, keep hanging out, all you got to do is click one of those two rectangles and the conversation will go on. If not, thank you for stopping by and see y'all next time.